Hey guys, Thomas Jr. here, aka Mustached. I'm here to review Hardcore Henry. Now, before I even begin to review this, I must advise if you're someone who gets queasy at shaky cam or anything of that nature, then you might want to avoid this movie in particular, as there's a lot of motion in first person and a lot of that shaky cam going on. So, if you can handle it, it's a pretty solid movie, and I enjoyed it pretty regularly. Uh, and I did have a few issues with it, but that's for a little bit later on. So, we follow Hardcore Henry as he wakes up and he's missing a leg and an arm, and he gets those reattached by his wife, who is a doctor and is saying that these parts are mechanical and uh, they sort of reskinned his skin, I guess. It's a bit weird, but after they sort of wake up, after he sort of wakes up and stands up and starts to head out, they get attacked by this evil guy named Akin and his henchmen, and they kill all the other doctors in the vicinity, and they capture his wife, and they bring her away. And Henry saves her and brings her into this sort of like pod, where they escape and they hit the ground, and she's sort of knocked out for a bit, and then she finally awakes at some point and is once again recaptured, and Henry then has to go through all these obstacles to try and get her back. And he goes through all these different environments, like a train and a subway and like all these other places, and along the way he meets these characters that sort of act like NPCs in the movie. As soon as most of them finish what they have to say and set up, they usually all die in this. So Henry is continually left all alone and is like trucking along, and then we get to this point of the movie that I've actually seen before, way before this movie was probably even known as Hardcore Henry. I think I either seen it on Facebook or on YouTube really, really early on, of him fighting along with this other guy he's with who has the capability of switching bodies. He does this weird, unnecessary song thing. It's kind of stupid, to be honest. And then he proceeds to help Henry with this military-esque type persona that he's in. The body that he's in is like this military body. And Henry's in this tall building, and he's shooting up guys that are trying to come in after them. And they finally get out. And then at some point, he learns that his wife is actually with the evil Akin, and this was all a ploy to see how much of a battle combatant robot he is. He's actually full robot. We see this later on in the movie. You see his like ectoskeleton or whatever you want to refer to it as. I'm not sure what the term is because they never actually give it a term, which is a bit unfortunate. But we see that Akin has these capabilities to like shove things around with powers, and Hardcore Henry is trying to get up to him on this roof, and then he gets attacked by all these different robots, I would assume, and then he's shooting them up, and he manages to finally get revenge on Akin, and the wife is all like, "No, please don't." After he sort of gets on this helicopter, and she like tries to climb back on, and he's like, "Nope," and shuts the door on her, making her fall down, and that's the end of the movie. Um, Now, with this being first-person view, there are a few elements I wish they could have included in this. Like, I think it would have been a funny gag to have him look in the mirror at some point in the movie and have the mirror be all fogged up, since it's a very common video game trope. But there is another video game trope that I actually really like to see in this movie, and that's when these two characters are talking in a different language and they're arguing pretty fast with each other, and the dialogue boxes actually cover each other up, which is extremely clever. It's a pretty good nod to when characters are overlapping in video games. And I actually got a chuckle out of that scene. It was pretty funny, to be honest. And other than that, I wish there could have been more to Henry. He doesn't have a single line of dialogue in this movie. Um, and he does seem to have a unique sort of look to him. When he looks at himself, you can see these tattoos. So to say he's the common hero that you could sort of insert yourself seems a bit questionable here. But I guess the player character covered him in tattoos or something. I don't know. Um, that's fine, I guess. It's a bit iffy, but I would have liked to hear him at least say something at the end of the movie. I felt like that's what they were gearing up to for the entire movie, and still not a single line of dialogue. The dialogue is instead uh, pointed to, as I said before, the NPCs. They have to pretty much help tell the story, which is okay. Um, there are a few moments where it's just pure action, and that's some like a good chunk of the movie. There are a few breaks here and there, and like when he's on the bus, he gets to talk to his NPC guy, and then eventually he gets shot, so he has to get out. There's this flamethrower guy that's after him at some point. There's all this stuff going on, so it's a bit more hectic with very few breaks in between. It's usually when he's talking to one of these NPC characters. So there's that. I enjoyed this film. It was okay. So I'm gonna give it a solid 7 out of 10. Um, yeah, just a pretty simple and effective first person sort of video game esque type movie. I think they could have used a few more video game tropes, to be kind of honest. I liked how they used a bit of parkour, as that is something that has been used in a lot of video games recently. I like the whole dialogue box thing, and like I said, I think like those are the only two I could see happening in the movie that felt outside of the action. So I would have liked to see a bit more of those type of some of the more obvious video game cliches used in a pretty clever way. Like I said, maybe the mirror, like a mirror scene where he looks at himself and it's just a fogged up mirror or a broken mirror, something to give us a bit of a nod more to those types of video games that do that sort of thing. But overall, it's a pretty good action packed movie, so there's that. Anyways, that's my review. So, with that being said, this has been Thomas Cecilia Jr., aka Mustache Tom, and I'll see you guys next time.